everybody. My name...
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the SeattleLives Live Events Industry Panel, presented by PNTA and the Canvas Event Space in Seattle. Our moderator is nationally renowned Emcee and auctioneer, Fred Northup, Jr. Tonight we will be discussing the effects of the coronavirus crisis on Seattle's events and live entertainment industry. Joining us now from the Canvas Event Space, Fred Northup, Jr.
And thank you so much for being here with us, tuning in wherever you are, whether you're in your pajamas or maybe you got all dressed up for this. We appreciate you being here as we discuss what's going on with events here in Seattle. We've got an amazing panel, but before we get to them, I want to thank Canvas Event Space for letting us be here. I want to thank PNTA for providing this incredible technology so that we can have these important conversations. So let's talk about our amazing panel. Up first, people that I have worked with, by the way, countless times. Our first panelist is Shelly Tolo from Tolo Events. Now, Shelly Tolo launched Tolo Events in 2002 after a 12-year career as a development officer and event planner for nonprofit organizations. Her business mission is to maximize events through strategic planning, and she creates fabulous atmospheres and programs. Shelly holds a master's degree in public management from Carnegie Mellon University with a concentration in nonprofit organizations. And in addition to her business savvy, Shelly has a very keen eye for design, and she is recognized as a leading event designer in the industry as well. So thank you, Shelly, for being here. Following Shelly, we've got Gazala Uradnik, GFS Events, and also ILEA Seattle chapter. And Gazala is the founder of GFS Events. GFS Events is a company that specializes in producing successful nonprofit events. Gazala is also the president of the Seattle chapter of the International Live Events Association. Gazala, thank you for being here. And finally, Katy Willis has served as the director, Convention Services at Visit Seattle since 2013. Prior to joining Visit Seattle, Willis was the director of the World Trade Center Seattle and senior sales manager for Columbia Hospitality, selling venues, memberships, and creating event content for greater member engagement. Visit Seattle has served as the official designation marketing organization for Seattle and King County for more than 50 years. A 501c6 organization, Visit Seattle enhances the economic prosperity of the region through global destination branding, along with competitive programs and campaigns on leisure travel marketing, convention sales, and overseas tourism development. So again, thank you three for being here. We're going to go right to it with our first question. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we've got chat going. If you have questions, you can certainly add those questions as we go along as well. So let's start with the obvious one, the impact of COVID-19 on our local event and entertainment and hospitality industry at large. And Katy, do you want to start here with what's been the impact so far?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. You did a great job describing what Visit Seattle does as a destination marketing organization. I wanted to add just a few other points to it. I don't know if a lot of people realize that tourism is the fourth largest industry in our state. It's a big deal in terms of jobs, and it accounts for over 79,000 jobs directly. 2018 data shows that we enjoyed over 40.9 million visitors that year. 2019 was also up. In fact, we've had nothing but record-breaking years since about 2009. So visitor spending is recorded as $11.3 billion. And I just want to point out that that means that state and local taxes that are paid by visitors are $806 million. And that actually offsets what we're responsible for as individuals who live here. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone realizes how important it is to have all these people coming in and seeing our state. You know, we are doing everything we can at Visit Seattle to just track this so much data. We're all getting news from so many sources, right? And it can be a little bit overwhelming, but We're doing our best to consolidate it and make sense of it and make sure that you all have access to it. We are following a study by U.S. Travel Association. They use a research firm called Tourism Economics. They have estimated that the COVID-19 impact on the U.S. travel industry is 7 times worse than 9/11. The travel industry losses alone will be great enough to push the U.S. economy into a recession. We're talking about $910 billion in total economic loss, which is a loss to state and local taxes, and it's also a huge loss to unemployment, in upwards of about 6 million of jobs lost. I just wanted to touch on some of the big industries that I know we're all tracking really strongly. I mean, airlines has been devastated. You know, major airlines are either suspending flights or reducing flights. There was a report from TSA that tracks actual numbers of travelers through every airport in the nation. And I thought it was interesting that on March 1st of this year, there was about 2.3 million travelers, but on March 31st of this year, there were fewer than 150 people traveling. That's 93% less than the same time last year. So that was kind of a staggering figure. I think we've all heard that the Port of Seattle has they've delayed the start of Seattle's 2020 cruise season until further notice. Each home port cruise ship that takes off from Seattle and comes back contributes about $4 million to our local economy. So with a season of over 200 sailings, that's over a 900 million statewide loss, including over 5,000 jobs, which is really tough to hear. We all know that restaurants are struggling big time. We know that attractions, museums, many are laying off lots of their staff and furloughing them. Obviously, it's just been devastating in that realm, which is all small business. But then hotels, I can speak to that as well. We're seeing dramatic losses in transient rooms, group sales, small meetings. The occupancy rates have been the lowest since 2003. And we know of about 25 hotels in the downtown core who have had to just suspend operations temporarily, which is about 5,000 hotel rooms just sitting empty. And I also wanted to share some interesting stats from CBRE. CBRE is the largest commercial real estate service investment firm, and they are expecting that the U.S. RevPAR, revenue per available room, to decline 37%. Previously, the largest decline in the last 20 years was 17%, and that was in 2009. So, unfortunately, this is the largest single-year decline since they've been tracking any hotel data since the 1930s. We do know that, occupancy in the downtown core, just last week, it was March 22nd to the 28th, so it comes a week after. But right now in the downtown core, the average occupancy is 8.8%. To give you an idea, last year at this time, we've been lucky to have 87.5% as an average. King County is not far behind. Occupancy last week was 16.4%. Last year at this time, it was 79.7. So luxury hotels, upscale hotels are feeling this the hardest. Economy hotels are certainly not much better off, but they're sitting at 39%. Lastly, I know this is all hard news to hear, but lastly, in the meetings and convention world, at the Washington State Convention Center, we've currently lost 11 citywide conventions. They have just outright canceled. That is March, April, May, and some beginning into June. One of our groups was able to postpone till later in August we want to do that with all of them, but it's just about not actually having dates available to move them to, which is one of the things we have had as a challenge. One has moved to a virtual event, but just in the meeting sphere, that contributes to about 87 million in lost economic impact, 75,000 total hotel rooms not happening, and 57,000 people who would have been walking around downtown, eating in our restaurants and shopping in our retail. So I realize that's daunting and big, but I wanted to share what really the atmosphere that we're in.
And Katy, what do you see on the back end of this? What do you estimate will be necessary in order for us to recover from this? There will be a time, hopefully, when we've got COVID-19 under control, but then what? What will it take for Seattle to recover all of these losses?
Well, many things here. The long-term meeting industry it lays down the foundation for all of us. The big conventions that come in lay down that business, and a lot of what's going on in that scale are events that they must book 4 to 5 to 6 years out. And so nothing, our 2021, 2022, all are very solid numbers. And I was going to save this to the end, but we actually just signed a piece of business for 2026. That just shows the cycle of how these associations work and how much time it takes to lay this down. I think that in the interim, we're clearly all at a loss, but the events are going to come back. As soon as we can push go, we'll be ready to take them back. And I know, and these ladies can speak to it too, everybody, venues, hotels, everyone is doing their very best to try to just postpone and rebook and reimagine. So.
And let's talk about that. I am a fundraising auctioneer. My team and I had 21 events in March, all cancel. And I'm seeing a mix of some events that are just outright canceled, some that are pushing, some that are going online and trying to do virtual events. Shelly, what are you seeing the effect being on your business and your industry?
Yes, thanks, Fred. Good seeing you. Fun working with you in this way. I would also agree. This particular time of year, we're hot in, fundraising gala season, sure. I can tell you that we had 2 amazing events on February 28th and February 29th. We celebrated with the Seattle Opera, who had an amazing event. And on the 29th, we were doing an event in Pittsburgh for the American Heart Association, the Pittsburgh Heart Ball. And I just remember that following Monday, celebrating with our team for how great everything was. And then on Tuesday, so this would be like March 3rd, that day, all of our corporate business canceled. And these weren't big events, but these were some very consistent corporate clients who we do multiple events a month for. But they knew starting the following day their employees were going to start working from home. So that instantly went away. And then we started hearing from our nonprofits, who we've been super busy over the last month, just helping them walk through their contracts. And Gazala will be able to speak to this as well. But I found that both of our very large fundraising, like $1 million plus fundraising galas for March, instantly rescheduled because they just learned, we can't have events of 250 people or more. So we're going to get our date and we're going to reschedule. One is rescheduled for June 6th. So now I'm nervous about that one. And the other one is scheduled for September. So, as we all are hoping that the fall is going to be great. But for those April clients, they also felt like they needed to move really fast. And they weren't just quite sure what to do. So in our instance, most of our April clients outright just canceled. Our May clients have had some time to digest. And while they are also canceling, most of them I find, since they have time to plan, they're the ones who I'm finding are moving their events online. And for nonprofits, it's not quite as easy as just rescheduling to the fall, because a lot of these they might have a walkathon and a luncheon in the fall. So now to take their gala also to the fall, like it sort of screws up the fundraising cycle. So I think that's some of the struggle people are having to deal with, is like it's disruptive for what they're hoping is going to happen in the fall. And their audiences of donors aren't that big to be able to just, keep on going. But one really cool thing I'd love to share is Temple University Hospital out of Philadelphia is our client, and they've told me many times they felt like they had a 2-week window into the future having us from Seattle work on their event. We started talking and tracking things, messaging and what was happening in Seattle instantly. And it really helped them to sort of plan out their decision-making process. They have since, that event is going to be May 9th. They have canceled it, but we're working toward, is it going to be an online experience? They're definitely not going to reschedule it for the fall, because it's super important that $1.5 million fundraising event lands in the spring. So that's what I can initially start with, talking about our clients and what's going on.
And certainly people who are trying to reschedule into the fall are running up against the fact that venues are booked, auctioneers are booked. We've all been booked for those fall events already, so it's really hard as my clients are trying to push into the fall. Now, Gazala, I'm curious, for your summertime events, for your fall events, what are you telling customers? A lot of my customers are very nervous, and I'm personally kind of encouraging people to relax, because things change so quickly. What advice are you giving people who are looking at fall dates, who are looking at summer dates?
So we haven't had any cancellations. So all of our clients have either moved into another month. Some of our March moved into June, but the majority moved into the fall. And so March and April moved to fall. And then we had some in May who have now decided to go virtual. So we're actually either moving clients or going virtual, because some of them, as Shelly mentioned, don't have the option of really even changing to the fall based on their fiscal year schedule or based on their other fundraising pieces that they have to do. So they have to stay where at least the money has to come in at some way within those 2 or 3 months. So to answer your question about June, we've just started to have conversations, honestly, Fred, about some clients who are currently in June about going virtual, because we've changed. We have a really large walk that we do for a client, and that we've moved to August. But even that I'll be honest, it makes me a little nervous. And then today I had a call from a client who moved from April to September, and they're also thinking about, is this even late enough? Should we push this to December? Should we consider just moving it to January of 2021? And so we're just kind of taking it day by day and talking to our clients and seeing where they're at. And wherever possible, if we can move them to a virtual event and doing something online, that seems to be working for some of our clients. We just had a client that went virtual on March 27th, and their event original date was March 28th. They actually raised more and netted more than if they had the event in person, based on the savings that we had from the caterer and the venue and the AV. So we actually more, which was a huge surprise, I think, to all of us, and a very good surprise. So we're just trying to get our clients to push them as farther the calendar as we can. But as you said, it's a wait and see. We don't really know what's going to happen next.
And Shelly, certainly nothing compares to the energy and the excitement of a live event, but what are some opportunities that you see as your customers are moving into virtual events potentially?
Yeah, for sure. So we've been coaching them. Like, you might make the decision that you're going to cancel, but you don't have to necessarily maybe cancel all of your contracts initially. So like if you have Fred hired for your event and you're going to do it online, you would probably want to keep your auctioneer or your MC as part of that online experience. Or if you're recording live auction item packages or things along that line, there is still a place for your auctioneer professional. The other really cool thing, which it's not going to happen, I'll explain why, but we had the Pointer Sisters hired to perform at the Temple Gala. And when I knew that they were probably going to be canceling, before I just reached out to say, hey, would they consider changing the date, I asked if they would consider doing an in-studio private concert as part of an online fundraising event for the Temple University Hospital community. And they said yes, that they would be willing to do something like that. So particularly in that situation, we didn't think we were probably going to get the deposit back because of how the contract was written. It's like, rather than just eat that cost, I bet they'll be, willing to try to do something creative. Now, I will say, even better news, the Pointer Sisters actually have totally released Temple from their contract and are returning the deposit money, which is just so awesome. And, our healthcare hospitals are right on the front line, and to see artists be just so amazing about that. I was never so excited to tell somebody that we were able to get out of a contract as that one, because it was a big piece of money. And to know that the hospital didn't have to eat that, or, we had talked about maybe we would do something for their sponsors later in the summer and the Pointer Sisters could come in for that. But, it's all just to encourage people to try to think creatively. I know the venues, of course, have been really wonderful about shifting events and moving deposits because, the hotels they need the revenue. So, that's what I would say. Be creative. Look at things positively when possible, but also understand if you can't get out of a contract or you can't get a deposit back, the people on the other end of the contract are also running a business too, and they're in, we're all in this together in this situation. So
yeah, I certainly see the opportunity also as being that in these difficult times, I think people like a sense of normalcy sometimes. They still care about these organizations. They still want to support these organizations. And so, here we are at Canvas Event Space. We've got PNTA providing all this technology. You can do live streaming events. You can still connect with your donors. And I'm just telling, groups that, this technology exists. We can still bring people together using technology like Greater Giving and Maestro and all these others that they might already have. I think people don't understand that, how possible it is. There's a lot of panic and unease, but I do think that there's that opportunity, and also the opportunity, therefore, to expand to a wider audience. In your gala, you might have 500 people, but with the right campaign, maybe you engage 1,000 people or 2,000 people or more. I think these are obviously challenging times, but I think, as you said, if you're creative, you can certainly design a way to engage your donors and people who really want to support you in different ways and unique ways. Katy, let's go back to you. I'm curious. You talked about some pretty heavy numbers that are certainly hard to digest, and I'm curious, just for you personally, what's been the impact of COVID-19 on you?
Many things, actually. To me, I think about this every day, that our lives, for better or worse, and all different examples, have just changed in a blink of an eye. And I think that is such an odd concept. I have 2 little kids at home and a single parent, and I'm working out of the kitchen table. So that's a major difference. But, I'm mostly just, frankly, it's really hard to track what's happening to our community. to see just what's happening to every restaurant and every venue and every hotelier and all of our friends. It's hard to stay upbeat, frankly, when I'm just being inundated with data of not good. All of our friends are temporarily furloughed or worse, or even closing, and that's really hard to stomach. I know that, at Visit Seattle, we want to just make connections between these small businesses and possible resources. So we've been trying really hard to at least make those links as a first step of helping. But, and because there's no business coming in, it obviously has affected our own operation. We've had to have permanent and temporary layoffs. Everyone is on reduced schedules. And, my own team is, they're luckily on a temporary layoff starting last day is tomorrow. And we're doing all sorts of Teams chats, and we're close, and it's hard, to see them and know that they're not going to be able to be working for the next 2 months. And nothing will look the same. It's going to come back. I know that. But nothing will actually look the same. There will be a shift, in my opinion. So.
Are you giving advice to small businesses more specifically about how to weather this storm? Because certainly one of my concerns is that, as a fan of all things Seattle, that the local businesses can't survive, and then the big national businesses come in, and we start to lose a little bit of the heart and soul of Seattle. Is there advice that Visit Seattle and you are giving to these small businesses?
Yeah, just recently, so we have a partnership base that's a part of Visit Seattle, and 80% of it is small business. We just are sending out, hopefully, helpful resources and links. We've been working really closely with U.S. Travel, Destinations International, Brand USA, to make sure that there were specific terms in the CARES Act that just was signed into law. And as we figure out, we're all reading that and digesting that, and as it gets rolled out, we have linked to our partnership base just this week a quite lengthy email with information about federal loans, grants, Washington state resources, what it means, what do you do if you're, there's many, it's actually quite long. And I wanted to share that with this group today afterwards, if it's possible. There's King County resources. There's things about what Amazon has established, a neighborhood small business relief fund. We've got City of Seattle small business relief package links, stabilization funds, arts recovery packages, lots of arts and culture resources. So it's actually 4 pages worth. So I think at this point, I just want to make it easy and accessible, and try to help find solutions with people who are probably overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And Fred, to sort of add on to that, Tolo Events is members of Visit Seattle, and it's really sad when I have labeled all of my emails, and I have like a COVID label for my emails, but I know the list that was just sent out by Visit Seattle this week, I learned about something that the Seattle Metro Chamber was offering to help companies. You could, if you pay insurance, health insurance for your employees, which I do, you could apply for a grant for them to help pay the insurance premium, which I thought was super cool. It was about helping to keep your employees covered during a health crisis. So yeah, there are lots of resources out there, and I'm chomping at the bit to apply tomorrow for the payroll preservation stuff. So yeah, that takes just almost as much time as working with our clients as an actual small business owner, trying to make sure you're, doing what you at least can in the interim.
Shelly, as you help your customers pivot to new ways of doing business, is Tolo Events also having to do that?
Yeah, so couple, as we talk, it's all about, the personal impact that you had asked. I mean, we laid off our 3 event assistants, and that was super tough because I felt like I had like the dream team of event planning in Seattle. So, when you break up the team, when it's no one's fault. I mean, it's one thing if you have poor performing employees and, you need to release people, but this has nothing to do with that. This is just like for the long-term survival of your business. I also was super fortunate that our office space, I was on a month-to-month lease, and we have warehouse space too. So I was like, okay, we're moving our desks to the warehouse because we aren't even in the office anyhow. So that was like an instant saving. So I think you, as a business owner, just like, cash flow is king. Cash is king, and I look into everything. Like, I got an email from I travel a lot. I got this email from GoGo InFlight saying that they were not going to charge fees for the month of March. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. So I went online and I canceled my subscription to GoGo InFlight. It's something small, but you do have to be looking like, what are those automatic things that are just charged to you, to your business or even your personal life each month that you sort of forget that you have subscriptions to. It's looking for like, how can you trim expenses? How can you trim? And then of course, my 5 employees who are still on board, who I'm hoping will all make it through and out the other side. Yeah, we are working 1 day less a week. So I've asked everyone to work 4 days a week rather than 5.
Gazala, anything to add there, Gazala?
I would echo. Shelly and I have had a couple of heart-to-hearts this week already about the small business and what it means for us, and we're having to do the same. I would say GFS Events has been really lucky that we, as I said, we haven't canceled anything. We haven't technically lost revenue. We've just moved it. And we may not have any additional revenue in the fall, but my goal has been to keep my team working, and we have just started to work on internal items, things that we have been wanting to do for a long time, updating our website, putting some one-pagers out there, getting things that we've always talked about doing and just never had the opportunity to do. And so I'm kind of excited about that and just really working together as a team. I think echoing what Katy said, it's been super hard. I'm a really, really big extrovert, and just not seeing my team, not seeing my friends, not seeing even clients has been really, really tough. So we are trying really hard. I had one team member call me today and she's like, I have no work questions for you. She's like, I just wanted to chat. So I think it's really important as a small business owner to keep our, keep it as positive as we can, especially for our team and our families. But it has been difficult, and we're trying really hard I'm trying really hard to keep my team positive and not have to do any kind of layoff. So that's been my number one goal since this started.
And Gazala, you talked about going virtual with some of your events. What does that look like exactly?
So that's a good question. So we have a couple of events weren't large scale auctions. They were fundraisers where it was more traditional, come to the event, raise your paddle, and that's it. There wasn't an auction component involved. And we're finding that those events are the perfect ones to go virtual because you're asking for dollars that you would have asked for at the event. You're just going to ask for them online. So what we've done is we've helped our clients create a marketing campaign and really helping them to craft messaging around why the need is so big and why it's so important to give. And one thing that we're seeing is that people are stuck at home and they want to help. You see it all over social media, people who are making masks, people who are trying to do anything they can to help. And so some of our clients have been really hesitant to want to even ask for money. And our message is there are people out there who are willing and able and ready to give, and they just need to hear your message. Arts organizations especially. So there's just, we're basically pivoting in the direction of how do we take all of the things that we would do for you for a live event, and the same foundation is laid, it just turns virtual. So even though we can't meet in place, we send out a video. We highlight why this is so important. We talk about the importance of community. And so those are the kinds of things we're doing via email messaging, social media, and then sending out some live or pre-recorded videos as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing, especially with places like here with Canvas, Event Space, PNTA, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more live fundraisers as well once things have settled a little bit. But well, we still need to remain indoors.
Fred, a
yes.
funny little anecdote. Our team actually, I've been having this theme of like, no idea at this moment is too crazy of an idea. Because what? We're event planners. We create magic. We do all of this kind of stuff. And we actually one day during our virtual staff meeting, we were like, do we think, because this was about one of our luncheon clients, we're like, would it be possible to deliver 500 box lunches to 500 households so that people could eat lunch together and watch an hour-long broadcast and raise money and break out into like Zoom breakout rooms for table captains? Like, it's just not that crazy. This was before the whole don't leave your house situation, but like we're trying to think as crazy of things as possible, because they actually in reality might be possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they are possible, and I'm excited to see things like that happen. Again, I think that we need that community. It's one thing to get an email campaign. It's another thing to see a time-based auction online where you've got 7 days to bid and 7 days to give. But I think these live events are going to be really important as well. I think that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, certainly for every nonprofit. But I'm really curious to see how these live events happen. The only thing I would say to people who are doing live events, having a background in television production, is that there's a real difference between having a captive audience in a ballroom where people aren't going to stand up and leave halfway through versus an audience where people are sitting down at their kitchen table and kids are running around and there's a TV that's sitting right there and there are text messages coming in and people can be a lot more distracted. And so that would certainly be something to consider, is that the program has to be tight, it has to be moving and really well directed and really well put together, but it can't be this long program that you might have at a traditional gala or luncheon. Katy, we've heard about nonprofits pivoting a little bit. Are there anything, stories that either surprised you or kind of are uplifting, ways that you've seen businesses pivot in Seattle?
Actually, I think there's so many, and I imagine you've all seen what I've seen as well. I mean, we quickly saw the restaurant world start to do takeouts and deliveries, and Tom Douglas did the salmon bake and pick up through your car window. I love what Sabre Seattle is doing. If you've seen, they're not doing the traditional tours through the market until about summer, but they put together baskets of market vendors that you can pre-order and then either pick up or have it be dropped off. I mean, those are really creative ways to reimagine your business. And I have to say, honestly, just what PNTA is doing right now with setting up a permanent, semi-permanent stage in order to make this stuff happen, I think that's excellent ideas. I think there's lots of good ideas out there.
For all of you, are there any unique steps that you're taking as a business to support clients and employees and the community during this time?
Well, I think that, I haven't come up with an idea. Even sorry that I'm stuttering so much, but like we're so about logistics and project managers. Like if the event profession is all about logistics. And I wish there was a way that we could lend our skills to government or whatever along that line to help. I haven't quite figured that out or not, how to specifically do that. I don't have a sewing machine, so I can't be like making masks. They would probably not be that great in reality. But this gets back to people do want to support organizations. So it's whether it's through donating or it's supporting the restaurants, but there's still these just stories of people really working so hard to try to keep their businesses open and their employees employed. Like today in the Puget Sound Business Journal, like John Howie talked about, he's selling off his amazing wine collection from the restaurants to have money to keep some of his employees paid. I mean, this is where we are. And the story went on to say, it took them years to put together something like that, but they're selling it off to survive. And I think those are really the cool stories. But yeah, you just feel so bad for your neighborhood eateries who some have already closed. I mean, it is going to change. And, and I think that the sad thing is we are really only just 3 weeks into this. Like we have another month to go or more. And we're going to continue to hear stories. Like today I heard about, this very large event production company out of LA who's shut down. That's it. They're done. They're out of business. And that to me was shocking because they're one of the most awarded event companies in the country. And to know, again, we're only a few weeks into what could be many more weeks to come, and to see really well-respected companies go out of business is sad.
Yeah, we're doing what we can in terms of local stuff. I do have a sewing machine, Shelly, but I can't sew, and I'm not even going to try. But I'll be honest, I have been donating a lot to my clients. As their contracts are finishing up, I'm trying to give back because it's really hard to see. We have one client we've had for 7 years. And they actually contacted us, and their event isn't normally until November, but they are basically going to have to shut down in the next 2 months. They're not going to be able to make it. And so just kind of spreading the word, talking about who needs help, reaching out to some of our business friends that need support. We're actually, this is Shelly's idea, but we're going to do a panel discussion with some of the event industry leaders who have also been past ILEA presidents. And we're going to just do basically a roundtable discussion and then maybe some breakout rooms to talk about what's happening. What are your questions? How can we be a resource to you? How can we just support each other? Because there have been so many layoffs. People are either permanently laid off or they're on standby. And it's just, there's no end right now in terms of when that would change. So I think that's been the hardest part, is it's not like, oh, well, this will all be done by, June 1. So I think that's been what we're trying to do, is just take little steps and trying to connect with our community as much as possible.
And I mean, certainly that's what's interesting is exactly that. We can and should probably have this exact same conversation a month from now and just see how things have changed, whether things have changed for the better, changed for the worse. I'm really curious. Shelly, I asked Katy about what recovery would look like long-term for the Seattle event community. For your nonprofit clients, what do you think recovery is going to look like?
I think, the fall certainly is going to be telling for our nonprofit clients. But actually I was going to respond with regard to our corporate clients. We need our corporate clients to get their employees back into the office working. I think that once that happens and once they're physically going back into the office, I think we're going to start seeing some opportunities. And there is some encouragement. I can tell you that, some of our corporate clients who we do some fairly large fall events for, they're giving us permission to start working on those events now, or, be creative on how you write the proposal for this particular year. But they're paying us to at least get the concepts in place. And then, of course, if the event happens, that fee or whatever then gets just sucked into what their typical event fee would be. But they're also realizing, like, hey, we want to be ready to go. But if you do all this work and then it ends up we can't have that event, we also want to compensate you as well. So, we are seeing some movement toward the fall. But for me, what recovery is like, again, being a super creative, we are pitching to our corporate clients now about what is the first day back in the office going to look like, and how can we be there to assist you in making it a special welcome back for your employees. So we're just being we're trying to create things. We've created a couple of really cool virtual event concepts. Our clients love them, but there's also needs to be sensitive. Maybe these are things we can implement when we know, like, hey, a week from now we are coming back into the office, like the ramp up time. Right now is not really the right time, maybe, for some of the crazy things we had concepts for. But I think that it's the first step for me in terms of recovering is when our tech companies start sending their employees back to the office, because they stopped going to the office even before the governor put any stay-at-home restrictions. So that's, to me, will feel a little bit normal when we're all physically going back into an office every day.
Our nonprofit community is certainly lucky, though, in that a lot of those tech workers still have their jobs. And while we've seen the incredible economic impact on many industries, there are those who still have jobs and those who still have the capacity to support these nonprofits that they love. But certainly, I would not advise anybody to be asking restaurants for charitable donations, nor wineries, nor the airline and cruise industry and all of those, as they are being hit so hard. Gazala, is there positive messaging that we can communicate to our audience?
Yeah, I think there is. And, you asked the question about what does recovery look like? And I think, or what is this going to look like for nonprofits? A smart auctioneer once told me that in order to have a successful raise the paddle, you want your 50% of your dollars already committed before you even start the event, right? And that's what it's about, is relationship building. So we are encouraging people that, especially now where we can't get together live, pick up that phone, make those calls, have those conversations, connect with your constituents, connect with your donors, your staff, and just communicate how important they are. And I think that is really the message that we're seeing is actually working. Sending out emails, doing social media is all good, but you've got to make that personal connection. And I think that for nonprofits, that's kind of a switch that needs to turn to. You can't just build it and people will come and they will donate. You do have to do a lot of work ahead of time to make all of that happen. We all know that, but it's just getting that message across and making them realize that, if this is going to be a little bit more long-term than we expected, let's figure out a way to still connect with our donors and still be part of making these missions happen for some of these amazing organizations.
Yeah, I agree.
I would love to jump in there,
yes,
actually.
Please.
Gazala, sorry. Thank you, Fred. I actually, just listening to you talk, and we all agree, I mean, it's like I'm going stir crazy in my own house, and everyone's anxious to find that connection. And to me, that's just a glaring, overwhelming answer that these face-to-face interactions, the tourism, the meetings business, the event business is not going anywhere. We're not going to just switch off to virtual events. I love that because it shows that we really crave that. And I think that is, is what's going to happen. And I just wanted to share that Visit Seattle, we right away in the beginning of March just cut all marketing efforts in around the globe and have put it all into a recovery plan. And when it's appropriate to push play, we will be out there with Seattle is open for business. So you can expect that from us.
That's great. I was going to say, you see, to Gazala's point, you see, zoos who are engaging with their, fans in ways they never have before through live streaming and zookeeper chats. And you've got children's book authors, Mo Willems, leading drawing sessions with kids. I think that these are opportunities that nonprofits can look to as well as a way to further, and deepen their donor engagement in unique and new ways. We're getting some questions, by the way, in our chat that I want to throw to the panels. One of the questions was, do you have any ideas for supporting our catering colleagues during this time? And that's to anybody.
Well, we're doing our part. The Uradnik family is definitely trying to eat out if we can. I'm getting tired of cooking for 5 every day. So we are doing our part to get out there, and that's all I know. I don't have any amazing revelation or idea, but we're trying to get that word out. And I've seen other people do the same, like, hey, let's support anyone that's still currently serving. Let's support them.
Yeah, for us, really just trying, I'm working on getting together a request for proposals for catering for an event we have in San Jose, California in November. And this is way earlier than I typically would send that out, but I'm going to get it out because I'm hoping that we can make a decision and get some deposits, at least deposits to our caterers. So I think anything, we've reached out to our clients who we do holiday parties for, like, let's just think about the future and what can we get locked in and planned now so these deposits can be paid and help the current cash flow of our catering friends. But I would encourage our catering friends, it's easier said than done, but I know a lot of the caterers are also starting to work on some really amazing packages that you can purchase. One, and I'm forgetting which one it is, I got an email from today, but you can literally go to them and get an entire week supply of food. So they're pre-packaging up your breakfast burritos, your lunch, your soup, some dinners. So it's drive up, they're going to give you an entire week's worth of food that you can heat up at your house. And it wasn't that expensive either. So I love how they're taking it beyond just like one meal to let us help feed you for the entire week, which I think is cool.
Do any of you have insight as to how your clients are handling these downturns is another question. Any stories that you haven't shared?
Well, right now we have significant, very large hospital clients, and it's tough. Like, we're trying to do our best in we started it last Friday, but each Friday for the next several weeks on our social media channels, we are sort of doing a little flashback Friday, but recognizing our hospital clients, and at the same time, putting out the links for where people can either donate cash or donate for PPE items. But I think for our hospital clients, I think any of the healthcare, whether it's, Swedish or Virginia Mason or Evergreen or Temple or CHI Franciscan, we also work with Bloodworks, like, they're in the thick of it. So I think anything we can do, just even social media wise, to help drive people and donations to them, that's super important.
That's what we're doing as well, is trying to drive donations. And I will just speak to that in terms of how our clients doing. And there's a lot of grief out there. I think that's the best way to describe it. When we had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with a client who has an event in May and had to broach the subject that this event isn't going to happen in May the way we had planned it. Let's pivot and move it online. Let's figure out how to make this happen. And it was an hour-long conversation, and we were on a Zoom call, and the faces of our clients, it was truly grief. They were just grieving for what has been lost, and they weren't quite ready to figure out how to make this happen. Of course, we are doing our best. Our job is to be positive. We can do this. We've got your back. We can make this happen. But I think we have to allow some of our clients, some of these businesses to have a little grief, because I know a lot of families out there with, seniors and school. My daughter was supposed to graduate this year from college. So there's a lot of things that we were all looking forward to that aren't going to happen. And so allowing ourselves a little time to just accept that and then figure out what's next. And I think all of us are doing that as quickly as possible. And some days it works and some days it just doesn't.
Yeah, certainly. I've certainly seen that too, where you want to allow your clients, as you said, time to grieve. But there's people who are so shell-shocked that when I offer some alternatives, I am every day met with surprise and shock and a little bit of relief when I say, no, there are still ways that we can engage with donors. There are still ways that we can raise money. There are still people out there who would love to support you. And I think all day, every day, I'm just hearing this kind of sigh of relief as I tell people this. And so, I really thank the three of you for all that you're doing to continue to move things forward. Shelly, you talked a little bit about some fun alternatives to hosting a traditional live event, delivering meals, for example, during a luncheon. Are there other creative alternatives that you're hearing about or considering instead of hosting a traditional live event with everybody gathered together?
Well, we hear what we were trying to figure out. You hear a lot about like these virtual happy hours and cocktail hours. Well, I mean, we were exploring and had figured out sort of this 3D, I call it the 3D concept, because number one, you're online, you can be invited to it, so therefore it's an event, but then it sort of ends. So we had a concept, so if anybody's interested, you can email me, but it was a hosted happy hour by a very well-known Seattle chef, and then we were going to send everyone, in this instance, I'll be happy to share, it was going to be actually some things with regard to Pike Market, where everyone who was in the happy hour was going to receive a package of things that they would then open and be able to interact with during said online happy hour. So it was about bringing a little bit of fun and mystery to each person's home who was participating. There's as we found, lots of hurdles to doing that, but I was ready to enlist our local businesses who have fleets of vehicles to deliver things to people's houses again. But, those were some of the things that we've been experimenting and thinking about. But as well, we're also helping some of our clients really work through what does this online event look like? And is it really an online fundraising event, or is it an actual broadcast? So as we've all been talking about, things change from day to day, let alone week to week. And I know, even though now all of our May clients have canceled or moved, 2 weeks ago, I was like, when they were still not sure what to do, I said, let's just take this a week at a time, because it's going to very much reveal itself to you what the right decision is. And it has. With each passing week, people know what they need to do if they need to cancel. It becomes very apparent.
Someone asked, once the event ban is lifted, should we still be thinking creatively for at-risk audiences and how we can engage them at home? Do you think there'll be hybrids, for example, between live events with streamed events?
I think so. I think that is definitely going to be the case. I think that it's going to be a little while before, even if things go back to, kind of a normalcy, I don't think we're going to be able to have very large events for a while. So we will have to be more creative, and perhaps it's just having an auctioneer up on stage talking for a little while and then streaming and doing something creative. Like Shelly said, we had a client who also wanted to do that same thing and deliver dinners to people's homes. And again, at the time that it was happening, it wasn't really feasible because of the ban and all of the pieces that would have gone into it. So I think we're going to have to come up with some kind of a hybrid until we've got a solution and we can get back together. But I think, as all of us have said, there will be an end. We will figure out live events will happen again. And I think just doing what Shelly said, being creative and thinking outside the box, and then working towards whatever your client's goals are is all we can hope to do.
For all of you, Brianna asks, as an AV tech who works as an on-call basis, we have a lot of 1099 employees obviously out there in our event world that we interact with. She asks, do you think enough is being done to push the government for relief for these types of employees? Do you have any suggestions there?
Well, I do know, again, because I've been researching all of this stuff, this is one of the first time where the gig economy workers are able to apply for unemployment. It's not probably sustainable in terms of income, but I think the CARE Act is also to be adding more money into that, like an extra $600. So I think, at least from an unemployment standpoint, there's the opportunity there for sure. Also, I think, with it wouldn't really impact them with the payroll preservation, but I'm super excited about that to try to keep your employees on payroll. Yeah, but I mean, there are jobs to be had, but they're risky jobs too. Like, we can't be more thankful to our friends and neighbors who are working at the grocery stores and our corner convenience stores and at Costco and, all of those. Like, they are out there trying to keep everyone fed, and we're so appreciative of that. It's got to be scary for them too, because they aren't home all day. They're more susceptible. So thank you to our truck drivers and our grocery store workers and our pharmacists and all of the people, in addition to our healthcare providers, for really keeping things going.
As a fundraising auctioneer, I'm never home at night. I'm often working outside the home, and so one good thing that's happened for me is that I've actually gotten to spend a lot of really great time with my wife Ashley and my kids Bowen and Zola. And I'm curious, whether it's seeing the teddy bears in the windows in my neighborhood of West Seattle or other things. For the three of you, has anything good come of this? Gazala, you talked about updating your website, but personally, are there any things that you're grateful for amidst the chaos?
For sure. I am grateful that my 3 almost grown children are living at home right now. Maybe they're not so grateful for that. But it's been a long time since we've spent that kind of time together. My 17-year-old son and I are going to have a garden this year. That hasn't happened in many years, since I think he was like 10. So I'm excited about doing a garden. I'm looking at photo albums and creating new photo albums and new scrapbooks. That's something I used to do all the time, and I'm really excited about being able to do that again. So trying to find the little things where we're watching TV together as a family, and finding something to watch for all 5 people at once can be difficult. So I think we're just trying to connect with each other, and I am grateful for that. That's time that I wouldn't have normally gotten otherwise, because the kids would be off doing their own thing.
Shelly or
That's
Katy?
true. I agree. I totally agree that it's the little things. I'm not quite there to say that we're doing anything amazing that is outside of, it's still so busy, right? To Shelly's point, like, it is still so busy, but the concept of just, we've never had this much time and dedicated time. And my kids, 2 girls are 7 and 9, and they, I do really appreciate that we are literally just teaching them how to cook and having them to help with chore time, but we're playing together well, and we're watching the TV and all that stuff. I say this, the friends that know me, I always feel wealthy when I have a freezer full of food. And I think it probably comes from my mom saying that a lot, but my freezer is full of food, and that makes me feel really fortunate. And so I'm grateful for that. And in fact, I'm a little worried when these kids do have to go back to school, we're actually going to have separation anxiety a bit.
Yeah, and the poor dogs and cats of America too, who are getting pretty used to having us around. Shelly, any final word that you want to add, Shelly? Anything that's been positive for you in these times as you've been at home more?
Yeah, so we don't have kids, but we have a dog. I was actually trying to get him to do a cameo, but he's sound asleep next to me here on the sofa. I will say it's been some humorous times. Like, my husband Thor and he's a college professor, so of course he's teaching courses. He's teaching his classes remotely from home, so that's been interesting. And I find that sometimes I want to butt in on something he's teaching, but I have to restrain myself. But there have been a couple times, like, we're sitting around, like, the day is super busy. Like, we're busy with work, we're doing all of that kind of stuff, but in the evenings, like we don't have any events to go to. And we'll be like, oh, and then, we hear like, oh, we're going to be doing this another 3 weeks from now. We're still going to be sitting on the couch, and we just sort of start laughing that, wow, we are really going to get a lot of good quality time. But yeah, it's fun. Like, we live in a condo, so our hallway neighbors, did decide that we're going to start having a little hallway cocktail party once a week. So that's going to start next week. Our church group, we have small groups, so we actually have our little Zoom Bible study tonight at 7 after this. So it'd be nice to see that group who we usually meet in person. So I think it's just finding ways to reach out. My girlfriends from college, we still communicate and just try to, be consistent. I love it that a longtime friend, our friend Evelyn, who didn't get to have a big 90th birthday party because it had to be postponed. I love that a few days ago, Evelyn called me to check to see how I was doing living in Seattle. So I just love it. I think we need to reach out to if you have living aunts and uncles, and staying in touch with my parents who are in Pennsylvania, but just reaching out and spending time and checking in on people. I think that usually, unfortunately, we don't usually have time to do that. And so now we have no excuse. We have time to reach out and just connect with people in a different way than we have in the past.
Well, Shelly, Gazala, Katy, you three are amazing. Thank you so much on behalf of everybody here in Seattle and in the state. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for the nonprofits, for the restaurants, for everybody in our city. I also want to thank all the viewers who tuned in. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. A big thank you, of course, to PNTA for all this amazing technology, to Canvas Event Space for hosting me here. We've got social media channels where you can follow us. Make sure you're checking that out. Follow us. There's a lot that's going to be happening on this stage. In fact, next Friday night, our very first musical review featuring singer-songwriter James Coates is going to happen right here, along with Center Stage Theater and other special guests and surprises. So everyone, my name is Fred Northup Jr. It's really been my honor to be here hosting these three incredible panelists. Thank you again for watching, and stay safe. Shelly, thank you.